Nichel Anderson. I'm your host for my podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond. So today is a new year, new beginning. We're going to do this in my season 6, 2022 to 2023. Today I'm going to focus on the aspect of Atlantis. We're going to look at some character breakdowns. I don't think I really went into this dedicating a full show regarding Atlantis, but I thought it would be needed. I got a lot of good feedback last season, my season 5, where people really tuned in and was intrigued and was really picked up on the steam when I rolled out Atlantis prior to last year. And of course, when I released my most recent one, and that was towards the last year, part of my season 6, which was a very big, good show. Hope you tune into that. If you haven't, downloaded and share it. But today I want to go ahead and focus on that. So without further ado, my name is Nichel Anderson and I love writing. I love stories and writing them, of course. Of course, my dream here is in Atlanta is go ahead and continue to get to my path of filming, particularly of my book, Mitsrayim, a memoir of a past life in ancient Egypt. And my goal is to continue to write stories and bring them to life. I started this podcast going on 6 seasons, and I really enjoy my podcasting. I'm able to connect and to expand on things that I don't have much time to, and I create it and I move on to the next and I create, and it's a lovely experience. I just love to sometimes when I can take a break and drink some tea and talk about my writing and what I'm blessed with. So I'm very happy to do that. And today Atlantis came about. It was just in my spirit to kind of focus on that. This podcast is mainly from my book, as I mentioned. If you have purchased my book, please consider to leave a review on Amazon. If you love it, please be positive. I know there was a hater over there roaming around and wanted to post that awful thing. I need to do a response to that, but I've just been busy and more important things. And I'm going to take this moment to do that before I get into Atlantis. Haters are just people that they refuse to accept someone else's purpose and talent. And when I wrote my book, I sat down after it was all these images, and I talk about it in the book, and I took the courage to say, I'm going to figure this out and I'm just going to write. At that time, I wasn't considered a writer, even though when I was in college, one of my English professors told me that you're good. And I did take it serious. I was in the retail and fashion. And he's like, no, you need to really, his name was Mr. Right. And he used to always just be very engaged when I turn in my writing assignments or what have you. Anyway, the journey of that is when those images came through and I'm sharing like a memoir, that was my heart. And I decided another courage moment to keep writing. Because fear, when it knows it's your purpose, will take that away. And I remember I decided to get up from that and push through all that fear. I have a separate podcast if you're struggling with fear, that's surviving your journey towards success. Do check that out. I talk about that. I have a skit about Mr. Fear and his cohorts and comrades and all that. But I took the chance to write that book where at that time, talking about black Egyptians or black queens and all of that was a taboo, because you definitely didn't learn it when I was going in school. You just learned about slavery, Martin Luther King, and bam, here you are. And that was that fear that no one would accept it or understand it or connect with it. And I took the chance and I did it. I found a way I could put it in a book and I put it out there. That took more courage, particularly one when it was over 50 pages, and that fear came up like a storm. And my ancestors just talked to me and said, get up. And I got up. And I went to that, it was a typewriter back then, more so, not this iPad, and I did it. And I typed the remaining of those close to, because you gotta type it and it's front and back, but for that, it's one sheet of paper when you finish typing it up. And I did that nonstop, and I completed the manuscript in 2 months. That's my journey, that's my purpose, that's my lifetime, that's what I'm sharing. And then you put it out there, and then someone come and review it and don't even they don't like the history, maybe they don't like black history, I don't care. I'm being raw with y'all. And if I read about Italians and their history, I'm going to honor that. I'm going to honor the books that the person took the time. Writing a book is a huge project. It takes your soul and your whole entity. And to write that awful thing on Amazon, and I'm not going to talk about Barnes and Noble. I had wonderful reviews. I was so busy. It took me 3 years to read these reviews of my book after I came to Atlanta. And I was just thrilled that people connected with it and what they wrote. In 2020, for some other reason, I'm getting a side-eye over here, was removed. And I'm just like, what? So that was Barnes & Noble. So yeah, I had like several good ones that they took the time and wrote about my book. And I was so, when I finally read it, like a couple years after that, I was like, I don't know what brought me to it. I guess, it was just in me to kind of check that out. And I was so thoughtful for them to do that. And then I think a year after that, whatever, then I saw something that someone wrote awful. If you can have a review and you maybe just didn't connect with it, but you don't try to tear someone down and to mock the characters, what I felt that came through channeling and being a medium of that, doesn't give the person the right to say beyond that, I just didn't connect with it. You say that this wasn't for me, maybe someone else, and you'll move on. And pretty much as the old saying is, if you can't say something nice, you don't say nothing at all. So when you have people that say that about your talent and about your blessing and what you're good at, what you're great at, and they tear it down to say, this is not this is not that. Yeah, then you turn around, they're sitting there stuffing their face with it and enjoying all the goodness that you put out there, but they can't say it to your face. And to post something like that is so wrong. But we all reap what we sow. We all reap what we sow. And I know it's a calling. I know it's a purpose. Before I published that book, Mitsrayim, a memoir of a past life in ancient Egypt, this is the first time I'm even discussing this, y'all. So I'm going to go with it before I get into my conversation. Y'all got to deal with this. My corporate America, surviving your journey towards success. That came to me because working in corporate America after college, I'm like, oh my gosh, they don't even teach this in college. This is crazy. And you know what? I want to help somebody and, help people. Help definitely people coming out of college like I was. And I wrote that book. And I remember I've seen this person on television, and she's supposed to be this and that, HR. So I sent my book. Do you know that lady when I called just to check on it? I was like, I would just like to check on my book to see if you enjoyed it. And I was about, that she screamed at me like she was talking to somebody that, I don't know, whatever, that it was the awful book she ever read in her life. How could you do this? You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm listening to, she's on television. She's a television personality. The television station calls her in to talk about HR and everything. And I sent my book for a review. That's what they say to do. You're young, you're 20s, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and you're positive. And by that time, I already had the manuscript of Mitsrayim. I just didn't publish it yet. I was trying to find a publisher. I was doing it, y'all, even though that was unheard of to kind of talk about Black history in that form. And later on, I had this issue at the job in this company, and I thought to write a book about how you can survive it. Corporate America, surviving your journey towards success. Just came up with the title. I even planned the whole filming of the picture on the front. I did that. I had permission to use the office at the company I was with. Yeah, so that right there was the first seed of my future of being here in Atlanta filming. Of course, that little side journal of doing a stage play, but nevertheless, she's screaming on the phone. And based on my childhood, and you can check my other podcast where I talk about my story a bit, I'm so used to that jealousy abuse because I experienced it as a child. And so I just sat there and let her go off. And then when she finally finished screaming at me, it was just so unprofessional. I could have called the station manager and say, "This is your expert?" But what that was jealousy. What that was envy. What that was dumb energy. Check my other podcast. I talk about dumb energy, the same thing as bullying energy. And what that was disrespect. And it showed me that people that you see on television or what they say they're expert are or whatever that, if they have that energy, guess what? They're not saying you nothing. They're just selling you a pipe dream. And to do that to a person that took the chance and wrote a second book, and really is to help. If you ever do read my book, Corporate America, Surviving Your Journey to Success, you can read it. I'm there to help. And to do that and throw all those temper tantrums and all of that is nothing but the enemy. So I said, you know what? At that time, I called someone else. Bless her heart. Her name is Angelia. I'm going to put her out there. She is an angel. And she said to me, it doesn't matter what she think or whatever. It matters that you took the chance to write that book and show your writing talent. I love the book. It helped me to understand what other people do in teams. And fast forward, I get to Atlanta. 2 years later, I get an email. It's from Essence magazine about that book. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. It was meant to be. And I'm featured in the magazine, and I was in high school. I say a couple years before that episode on the phone. with somebody that should have the dignity to say, let me go ahead and check this and let me pray to God or whatever. No, she came out screaming with all that envy and jealousy of insanity. When she could have just said, you know what, I really don't think the book is for us, or I think you missed this or whatever, but good for you for doing it. And then we could have ended that call. No, she had to scream her inferiority. Fast forward from that, it's about like 2 years after I got here, I believe, and they want to feature my book. Can I get a clap on that? I did that. I had the courage. I didn't let that lady put me down to make feel I was inferior. I was superior than her because I'm the calm one, and I created a book that can help people. So with that, fast forward, I got that blessing that it was meant to be. And I was in a magazine. I was in high school. Loved that magazine, and here I am, my name and my book. And I'm on the front cover with 3 other people I shared, or a couple other people I shared on the cover, and ruined the magazine. Are you kidding me? You're doggone right. So when you fast forward to this comment on Amazon about my Mitsrayim book, guess what? I would say bring it, but I just say, you know what? Live in your own misery, because I'm going to keep going, and I love what I do, and I am talented. Multi-talented. And Princess Amina had a message, and I called it. When I explained it is of me to share with you, I meant it. And that's what this journey is. So enough of that. I had to get that out, and we're going to move forward. But that was for somebody that's listening in and might be going the same thing. Guess what? You keep going, and you are the success. You are talented. And no matter who doesn't appreciate it, who cares? Because guess what? It's going to manifest, and it's going to show to everybody. I think it's in scripture somewhere that God will present a buffet among your enemies, and you're going to have it all. You hear me? All right, so we're going to get into this podcast show. That just came. I didn't plan it. It just happened. It seemed like I needed to address it, and I did. That's my response to that ignorant remark. So if you love my book, help a sister out, go ahead, tell somebody else to post a positive review of my book once they read it, and they're going to get something from it. That's what those other people that their reviews was deleted was saying. It's a giving energy. It's life. So let's talk about this. Atlantis, character breakdown. It is the royal family. In the last episode, we talked about episode 63, Queen Hagar enters the realm of Orion. All right, you got to check that out. And she goes to speak to their ruler about who they're going to pick to replace General Hanee. All right, and today we're going to focus on the character list and the short story of Atlantis. So let's begin. I'm a podcast show. So first, the location of Atlantis, and the coordinates of it is similar to what they felt that it was, located years ago, and I would say near the Caribbean. But the secondary kingdom is north of this huge island, and that's where Matum, the older son, the first son of Akobi. So we have Akobi and Legina, that's his wife. They're the kings, they're the ruler, and the capital is in the middle. And Matum was granted in the top area of this island, and he ruled that. Then Akobi and Legina had 2 children. They're twins. It's a boy and a girl, and they came around what I'm calling around this equinox time that the story opens up. That's pretty much scene 1 or so, and they talk about, and the boy and the girl is Arinte. Girl name is Maketa, and they're very close, and they are ruling like near the southern region of Atlantis. So their birth signifies what was predicted, that there will be unrest and disturbance. So they like ambassadors, pretty much they're going to be as well. That they also travel galactically, not just on the planet Earth, which I'm calling it Tamat, but also in different galaxies. That hasn't really rolled out, that I'm going to start having those episodes like that. Now it's just talking about what's going on in Atlantis. So I fast forward the story where now they're about 18 and 20 years old, in that range. So that's pretty much starting from part 1, going up to part 8 that I had released recently last year. So in my short stories on my podcast, MOLIAE is Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt. That's coming from Mitsrayim, a memoir of a past life in Ancient Egypt, the book. And then when I came to Atlanta to turn into a theatrical production, I condensed it when the lovely lady said, what's your title going to be for your production? And that's when I was like, And I thought about all of that, and it's Moments of Love. And I want to make sure people will know, well, what's the time frame? Well, in Ancient Egypt. So that's how I got it, Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt. So with that, in my podcast show, I list that as episodes. In Atlantis, I'm listing it as part 1, part 2, so we can differentiate it, because I don't want people, when they search, they're looking for episodes, and then Atlantis story comes up, because I got that in the tagline, so that's why I do that. And with that, it helps me to organize it. So I have Mahogany, that's another story, and I do that bonus 1, bonus 2. So just to kind of make sure we're in the search so you can find what you need to find. Hint, hint, I am planning to really get into condensing it in the sense that I can package it up, and for all Atlantis parts, you can be able to get that and buy that, and that'll help with my production, my filming production that I want to continue to do. So with the Atlantis, during that time, it's a time of peace, but of course you have to work and put in the effort so it can manifest. So the story progressed in parts, as I mentioned before. They're about 18 or 20 years old, and as the story progressed, you get a feel of Arente and Matun closeness and relationship, and they have these special powers, not only of influence, but telepathically, emopathically. They can communicate where they're not around one another, and they have a huge authority position. And that was in part 8 that I just recently released, where it was a vote, and sure enough, it went to Keita, that she would be the one to issue out the judgment, and she did, in a grand style. So Matun is the older brother, and they're very close, and how I left it in the last part 8, he's recuperating for what was, and his wife was involved, his ex-wife I should say, and he is recuperating now, but before, he helped rule the South with his father and his mother, and the North is not like a North Pole, but think of it as beacon, and it has an energy force that's connected to the other galaxies and the other planets and so forth. So by removing him, or try to remove him, you can have power and get resources and try to overthrow the whole island. So that's what was going on in these 8 parts so far. But let's go through each one of the characters. So the first one is Arente. Like I said, he's male. He's tall, dark as Nubian skies, with coral color eyes and thick brown hair. I'm quoting this now when I started it about 19, so like I said, about in between like 19 and 20. He's a joint ruler of the southern region of Atlantis. His twin sister is named Maketa, so we get into Maketa. She's next. She's about, of course, the same age, about 19, female, tall, not that tall, but tall enough. Long, dark brown hair, curly, what have you. Dark Nubian eyes of the deep sea, and she's the joint ruler. So Arente and Maketa is joint ruler of Atlantis in the south that was given to them at birth. Then you have Matun. He's male. He's tall, dark, and Nubian sky eyes, features in that way. Thick, dark Nubian hair, and he's ruler of the northern, we call it Northern ASPI region of Atlantis. Okay. Then we have Akobi. He's male, older, tall with gray and black hair, Nubian eyes, and he's the ruler of the capital, which would be the center of the island of Atlantis. Regina, she's the female, of course, the mother, and older, same age of Akobi. They in their 50s, 50 to 56, we gotta say that. She's the mother of the children of the royal family of Atlantis. She has high intellect. She has the 3rd order of Nuna. I'm gonna go into what that is. So that's just like a higher rank of knowledge and intelligence and influence. Then we have next on the list is my Faithso. And Faithso, basically, he's the military general of all of Atlantis with strong military skill. And he's about in his mid-40s or what have you. Then we have Lashhan. Lashhan is the first rank of military to the general of Atlantis, so you will hear about him soon. And then Fayumi, and she's like a native, so like a best friend to Maketa. So there are gonna be some other friends that's gonna roll out with this Atlantis, and stay tuned for that. And there's going to be like a love story going with Maketa as well as Arente, and we're going to start expanding out. It just came to me to kind of describe it. Atlantis, the size of it, I would say it's a pretty good size. It's not like a big state like you say the state of Florida, I would say, but it's a pretty good size. if I had to describe it. Mostly it's coming in as more wider, in a way. And they have interconnecting tunnels that are under water and above water. You could say several islands all into one, but it's all connected to landmass. So that's what's coming through. They have a space where starships can land on land and underwater. And that's where part 8 comes into play. They're underwater and they're connecting to this, like not with an auditorium, but a way where they come and can convene and vote. So one day I might actually have an illustrator to draw out what I'm seeing to help you connect. I definitely want to continue to expand this. I have a lot of stories that I want to come out with Atlantis that is in my mind to do. I just can't get to that yet, but it's going to be very interesting, particularly when they start traveling galactically and helping these other places. They have healing abilities. Arente and Maketo. They work hand in hand. So I'm definitely going to see that, and to heal, to educate, and to motivate. And part 8 just signify they have been raised to be the judge and the jury after it has been presented of the evidence. And this is on the galactical level. All right. So with that done and said, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for me sharing that early in the beginning of this podcast. That was not planned, but I felt I need to say it, and I feel good that I said it, and I hope you feel good that you heard it and it motivates you or motivates someone else. We have to stick together. We got to love one another, and we got to say, you know what? We're going to do this. So guess what? I see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Follow me on Twitter. That's MOLIAE. Follow MOLIAE World, our NFTs, and follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions about this or my projects, and if you want to support, help funding the film for my book, you can contact us at info@moliae, MOLIAE.com. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next one.